25 years ago, almost 25 years ago, when Kathy and I got married, we went on our honeymoon couple months later. In July, we went on our honeymoon to San Francisco. It's not cold in San Francisco in July, but we happened to be in a store, and, okay, I've got to tell you a little bit of a backstory. We have this 25-year thing going on where Kathy gives me presents, gives me gifts, and I exchange them. A lot. She just gives me gift certificates now. But on our wedding night, she gave me a beautiful watch that I knew I was never going to wear. And so we went into our honeymoon with this dollar amount hanging over that instead of the watch I was going to get. And we happened to go into a leather store in San Francisco and saw this absolutely gorgeous suede and leather jacket. And that watch suddenly turned into a gorgeous leather and suede jacket, which I wore year in and year out, year after year. I replaced the lining, I replaced the cuffs, I had it glued several times where the leather had cracked. There finally got to be a point where I couldn't, as much as I love this, I couldn't keep on wearing this as my go-to jacket. And a couple of years ago, I think it was maybe 2 years ago, can't remember what gift she had given me that I exchanged. But we were in another store, and she said, just try on this one. And as soon as I tried it on, it felt like a hug. It felt like it was made for me, and maybe I was made for it. It was a really good fit. And so I got this one. 25 years ago, I was pastor of a congregation in the Wrigleyville neighborhood of Chicago. And then a little bit after that, a few years after we got married, as you know, I moved to Lutheran Social Services of Illinois. And in both of those calls, I felt really, really comfortable, like I had felt wearing this jacket that Kathy had given me. But those calls ended, and I was kind of left out there looking for something else. And through a bunch of coincidences, I got in touch with your church council president. I was put in touch with your church council president. And from the beginning of our conversation, I felt a sense of grace emanating from this community. And it felt good. And I came to you on a trial basis. I got to wear the jacket for a year before I decided, and you decided, I decided that I felt I liked the feel of the jacket. And you decided that you liked the fit. And with great humility and with great joy, I wrap myself in your call And as I said in my letter to you, I beg of you to give of yourselves in support of this ministry, this marvelous ministry that we have going. And I'm speaking as one who has had a chance to see you up close and personal. And I've said it before, and I hope I'll continue to say it. This is a wonderful, dynamic, compassionate community. And I want to be entirely supportive of what you have been through all these years. And also about encouraging you and empowering you to not just replicate the ministries that you had in the 70s and the 80s or around the turn of the century, but to say, this is a new millennium, this is a new era, there are different kind of people around us, different ages, different ethnicities, different languages that we just don't have here. And they also need to know the sense of grace that I feel and that I know so many of you feel about this community, about this congregation. We have such a good thing going. Our challenge is to invite others in so that they can experience what we experience. Joy in one another's presence. 2 weeks ago when Kathy and I were downtown on a three-day weekend, and Sunday morning came and we missed you all. This is a community where God's grace abounds. And it's my commitment to you to help nurture what's already here. I ask you to pray. I ask you to give generously, because ministry doesn't just happen. Ministry has a dollar and cents, not bottom line, because the bottom line is the grace of God. But the heat, the pastor's salary, the cost of the bulletins, all of that is important for us to be able to be who God has called us to be. And lastly, I want to really emphasize that as we begin this new era, some congregations talk about pastorates. It's this pastorate and that pastorate. And as my pastorate, official pastorate, begins, what I hope we will, all of us together, be about is saying, how can we use all the gifts that God has entrusted to us? How can we pool our resources and our talents, pool our time, and do God's work in a more powerful way than we've ever done it before? Reaching a larger audience, inviting more and more people into this communion of saints. In just a few moments, we'll have the privilege of welcoming a new saint, a newly arrived, a new saint, into this blessed community. A few moments after that, we'll have an opportunity to light candles in memory of those in our blessed community, in our communion of saints who are no longer with us, but are certainly among us. And we will be invited to come to the table of this communion, this community, and receive a very touch of grace, the very living body and blood of Christ, a sign of God's continuing commitment to us and to the whole creation. We will be invited to feast on that morsel of bread and that sip of wine, to feast to our heart's content, to be filled with grace, and to go out, marked with the cross of Christ, as Connor will be in just a moment, marked with the cross of Christ, sent out into the world to bear Christ's name, to bear God's love to the ends of the earth. We together are called, not just I. By baptism, we are all called to roll up our sleeves and do the work of the kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen.